Hey guys, I hope you are all doing well. And here is another update for this build, and we have a few changes. Before we start, though, for those new and interested in this build, please check out my previous videos in the description below for the in-depth build guide and the first video update for the build. Unfortunately, there was no significant buff on the minions after the update. So for the Paragon board, instead of going through the minion buffs or minion damage buff, I went ahead and got the fifth Paragon board, which is the Scent of Death. The glyph that we'll be using for this board is Undaunted. This basically gives us bonus damage whenever we are fortified, and which is almost all of the time whenever we are in battle. And also, this glyph provides a sort of damage reduction. The legendary node for this board is perfect for the build, and we either get the bonus damage whenever we are off screening mobs, or if there are no corpses nearby, or we get the damage reduction from close range combat whenever there are at least two corpses nearby. So this is my current Paragon board, and as you can see, just continuation from the cult leader, and move some of the points here so that I can get through and get the points on this side of the Paragon board. For the equipment, the Ring of Mendeln, just as mentioned by other summoner builders, is a massive DPS burst. It does not trigger that quite often as I was hoping for, but when it does, your minions can basically burst down a boss or clear the field for you. The weird thing about this ring is that the damage via the lucky hit trigger does not benefit from minion damage bonuses. Instead, it calculates a certain portion of your own damage. That is why it does not matter even if we skip on the minion damage bonuses on the cult leaderboard. Overall, the Ring of Mendeln is a must-have for all minion builds. Now, Temerity works well, but after multiple testing, the damage mitigation gained via the barrier is not worth it on higher Nightmare tier levels, where basically anything can one-shot you, even if you have a full barrier. But if you want a more laid-back farming on a Nightmare dungeon with maybe only 3 to 5 levels higher than you, then this item will really make your character more tanky and very hard to kill. For the gems, I'm currently using the Topaz gem, so whenever you encounter a boss or an elite that throws crowd control at you, you will have a significant damage reduction while being crowd controlled. Now, I only have a very minor change in the skill tree for this build, and this also depends if you already have the Ring of Mendeln or if you have a Thorn bonus damage stat from one of your equipment. So, according to DryBearGamers, Minion does not trigger your lucky hits. However, Thorn's damage from you and your minions will actually trigger it. So if you don't have a Thorn bonus from your equipment, I suggest to put one level on Spike Armor on the skill tree for the extra lucky hit triggers. Side note, the Ring of Mendeln does not trigger from your minion's thorns. So thank you so much for Driver Gamers for doing all the tests in regards to the Necromancer minions. And if you guys are interested in that video, I also have the link down in the description. Now, before we move to the last optional changes on this build, I would like to reiterate that this build is viable from level 1 to 100, especially if you are grinding from level 90 to 100. If you just stay from Nightmare Dungeon tiers that are 3 levels to 5 levels higher than you. With that said, the first optional change would be the ultimate skill. Instead of using Army of the Dead, we will now be using Bone Storm. This skill paired with the aspect of shielding will give us a massive survivability, especially when you need to like dive into elites with the suppressor affix. The aspect of Ultimate Shadow is optional, especially since we only have very limited numbers of legendary aspects that we can put onto our equipment. And the increase in damage and the extra Shadow Blight trigger that we get from converting the Bone Storm into shadow damage, it just adds a bit of DPS. So we can definitely skip on that one. The next one is replacing Blood Mist with Decrepify. Surprisingly, this build works very well with this skill. This helps us reduce the cooldown of the Bone Storm and Taunt. It also applies slow and damage reduction at the same. So those are the changes for this update, which mostly focuses on getting more damage and damage mitigation for the purpose of pushing more on the Nightmare Dungeons. Thank you so much for watching this video. And again, if you guys find this build helpful, please leave a like, share, and maybe subscribe, as I will be posting more build videos for Summoner Necromancer. And I'm currently working on a hybrid of Bone Spear and Corpse Explosion with full summons, and it looks promising.